everyone. Welcome to Dr. Pundit, where we talk about music, not medicine. And kind of a somber show for you today. An RIP, rest in peace, where I, obviously talk about an artist who has passed away. Of course, everybody heard about the recent passing a couple days ago of Roberta Flack. I did not cover that. Not because I'm diminishing her career at all, nothing like that, but there are a lot of good tributes, and maybe I'll get around to doing one of my own with respect to her. But today we found out that one of my musical heroes in terms of the way this guy arranged music, he had a great voice, he even had a brief solo career in the 1980s. The death of Chris Jasper. Chris Jasper is a former member of the Isley Brothers who basically helped define their classic sound. He died of cancer at the age of 73. Jasper's family announced his death on social media, stating that he passed away on February 23rd following a cancer diagnosis about 6 to 8 weeks earlier in December of last year. His son Michael confirmed his death as well to a couple of other media outlets. Now, as a member of the Isley Brothers, Jasper acted as a keyboardist, percussionist, and vocalist, contributing writing to many of the group's most famous songs, especially from the 1980s. And that's where I really keyed into this guy. I had heard of the Isley Brothers, of course, as a teenager in the 1980s. They continued to make music, obviously, into the 1980s and even the early 1990s. But the architect of the sound, I would say that the forgotten member of that group, in addition to Ron Isley, who was the principal voice of the group, was Chris Jasper. He contributed not only writing, but great vocals, instrumentation to songs like Between the Sheets, For the Love of You, just classic hits. And he was with the Isleys from their peak in the 70s, the early 70s, 1973, 74, to roughly 84. And he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 8 years later in 1992. Following his tenure as a group member, he formed Isley Jasper Isley, the group that I was talking about in the 1980s, with his brothers Ernie and Marvin. And as a solo artist, he released, and I did not know this, more than 17 albums. I'm aware of a couple of his albums. And his biggest R&B hit, Superbad. So in 2014, he received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, and in 2022, he was inducted in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, much deserved. Chris Jasper was born in Cincinnati and was the youngest of 7 kids. He started studying classical piano at 7 years of age, and after high school moved to New York and studied music composition at Juilliard. Okay, so there you go. Isley Brothers member, going to prestigious schools to learn his craft. He grew up alongside the Isleys in the same apartment, which I didn't know either. He even formed a trio called the Jasmine Trio in the 1960s with Marvin and Ernie. And of course, 20 years or so later, formed Isley Jasper Isley. His 70s stint before joining the Isley Brothers in 1971, he started contributing to the Isley Brothers music, but as an uncredited member. The Isley Brothers, then a trio, signed a distribution deal with Epic Records in 1973 and expanded the group to include Jasper, Ernie, and Marvin. And it couldn't have been better timing. Their album 3+3 was not only one of the biggest albums of the year, spawning the huge hit That Lady, it became one of the biggest R&B albums of the decade of the 1970s. In addition to that, Fight the Power, Live It Up, were all from that classic 3+3 album. After the group disbanded in 1984 due to internal issues, Jasper formed Isley Jasper Isley. As the lead singer, Chris Jasper was a crucial force behind the group's 3 albums and the chart-topping R&B hit Caravan of Love. And by 1987, though, that trio disbanded and Jasper began recording his solo output, and hit number 1 in the R&B singles chart with the aforementioned Superbad. As a solo artist, he released 17 albums, as I have said, and I did not know that, including 4 gospel albums, He even produced hits for Shaka Khan in the late 1980s, and in addition to his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Grammy designations, he was given the National R&B Society Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 and the Soul Tracks Life Achievement Award in 2020. Chris Jasper is survived by his wife, Margie, and his three sons, Michael, Nicholas, and Christopher. Chris Jasper, you really should check this guy out on streaming. He is what I've been saying he is. You can hear the way he carries his voice. It meant so much to the Isley Brothers sound, especially in the early 1980s and on into the mid to late 80s when he really struck out on his own, and really that's when I began to discover him, and as a result enrich my knowledge of the group from which he came, his roots with the Isley Brothers. So it's always a full circle here, and when I see something like this, it just makes me want to take a step back. And as a Gen Xer, it's another artist I grew up with who has made the transition. I'm Michael Douglas, and if you like what you see here, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And until next time, as the late great Barry White always used to say, let the music play. And I'll see you on the next episode.